I'm Steve Johnson, News Director for theDove TV. Check out our other videos and visit our website at thedove.us. Thanks.
Welcome back. Well, as you know, or maybe you don't know, that our Oregon legislature voted in annual sessions. And during the even years, like 2014, they go into what they call special session for about 35 days or so. Well, that's the case. They're about halfway through that now. And with us is our good friend, Dave Dotterrer. He is an interesting guy because he's been appointed by the Republican caucus in the House and in the Senate to be the kind of like the budget liaison between the two. And he just happens to be running for state senator. Hi, Dave. How you doing, friend?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Well, what's happening? Anything happening on the budget, or has everything else gotten in its way?
No, actually not. They're still moving forward on the budget. I would say that you're starting to see a winding down. There's discussions about that. In fact, they may be the goal is to try and finish by the end of next week, which would be less than the 35 days. And so you are seeing that some winding down. And what you're also seeing as this works its way through, and we've talked about this in the past, is you see the difference between the dreamers and the realists. Mm-hmm. The realists are the ones that say, you know, this is a short session and you really can't get that much done. So let's just look at those tweaks and everything. And also, again, because you're not, citizen participation is greatly reduced. 1 hour notices are on the docket for changes and things like that. So for people to react, for the people to be involved is shortchanged, I believe shortchanged. So I think that's where you're seeing things go right now.
All right. So, do you think when you look back on these special sessions during the even years, that they may even consider cutting them down so that they don't get crowded with bills that'll never see the light of day?
Well, that's some of the discussion. I mean, for the first time, I've heard a couple of discussions around the building of people who say, maybe we ought to go back to the Oregon people and say, do we really need to do these? And so there was that discussion. I don't know where that's going to go anywhere, but here's kind of an intriguing idea that I heard also discussed, and that is that you amend the Constitution to say that any bill passed during this short session takes a supermajority. In other words, look, if we're tweaking something, changing some little thing to make it better, it really ought to be a supermajority vote, and we'll move on. And what that would do would clear out a lot of these more controversial and more complex bills that come in front of the legislature during the short session. So I just find that to be a rather intriguing idea that people ought to think about.
Well, it's telling me that you're evaluating the productivity of these sessions, and is it necessary to be there that long?
Yes, that's right. But again, there's people who now, this is the second time they've done this since it was passed by the people, and there's people who are starting to say, well, you know what? Was this really the right thing to do now that we've done it a couple of times? So I think you're going to start to see discussions about that. And again, how it gets changed, does it get shortened? Does it get, do you go to the supermajority idea? Do you do away with the session?
Yeah.
I think those ideas ought to be back on the table now that you've tried it.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's get into a few issues that are there. Any movement on the gun bill?
Nope. Still been sidetracked into one of the committees, and don't know what's going to happen with it.
All right.
So that's where that one is.
You think it's DOA?
Don't know. You never know.
Too early.
This is also the concern. Is all these last minute pieces. Where you say, okay, so get sidetracked off into this one particular committee that stays in place until the end of the session, and literally things can come back out again with an hour notice.
All right.
So yeah,
we'll keep an eye on it. What happened to what about the opt-out bill for marijuana sales?
That one, let's see. That one made it across the floor of the Senate unanimously, which was, that local jurisdictions can apply what are reasonable regulations, but they can't that doesn't give them the authority to outright ban it. See, we're kind of waffle wording that a little bit. And I know there's a lot of people who did vote for it because it was the best they could do in this short session, and it's better than nothing. But I know there was a lot of people who wanted the opt-out, the full opt-out, that just wasn't going to fly. So we'll see what happens when it gets over to the House side. That's where it is right now.
Cover Oregon. What's happening with that? I mean, as you well know now, Congressman Walden, along with Dennis Richmond, has called for a federal audit. This thing is extremely embarrassing. A lot of money. You got auditors. Let's see. You got auditors and engineers auditing engineers and auditors.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty interesting. And in fact, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I just had some discussions with some people because. Here's what actually we're being told on the record in committee is that, of course, we're spending almost $250,000 on this study that was hired by the governor to look at his program, and those folks are auditing and going around and taking a look at it. Well, before that is made public, that study is going to go over to the Department of Justice, and they're going to redact things out of it. Now, they promise us they're only going to redact those items that would be considered proprietary business information for the companies that worked on this, and that's all they're going to redact. And my comment to folks is, wait a minute, given that we've botched the oversight so badly here in the legislature, wouldn't it make sense for somebody from the legislature to go over to the Department of Justice, look at the unredacted version, and just make sure that we're not seeing something redacted that is, how should I say, political, or is that that is damning? Just to make sure that everybody can say, okay, a neutral third party went over and looked at this. So I think that's something that needs to be done.
Is there a request for a refund for the company that botched the website?
I have not seen that, and I've heard from some folks that the way they wrote the contract, it would be darn hard to go ahead and get any money back from them. Although they have withheld some money, but again, that's hearsay. So, but at any rate, that's one of the things I'm hearing. It's going to be difficult because again, that's the way they wrote the contract as a time and materials contract. So. They gave the time and the materials. You didn't give them a deliverable.
Well, geez, what a capitalistic idea.
I hire you to build my house, but I do it. You don't have to deliver a house to me. You just have to do time and materials.
Well, it's stacked up there on your lawn. You build the house. Yeah.
It doesn't look like anything like I wanted, but you know what? I work.
Oh, this is crazy. Anything else out there, Dave? We only got about 2 minutes. Anything else you see brewing?
Again, I am concerned about, as usual, and this happens at the end of every session, whether it's a short session or a long session. I am concerned about things that, again, that we don't know about, that are bills that are buried in committees. And the other thing that really does concern me back on the budget idea is I'm seeing discussions about what ought to be tweaked in the budget and everything like that. But what I'm seeing is this consistent wording that says, well, what we really need to do, it isn't a matter of whether we need to give this agency the additional money. What we need to do is fit this into the overall budget adjustment in the omnibus bill. Well, only a few people see that. That is a very, that stays within a very, very small circle. So at the end of the day, although there will be some input, in the end, the budget tweaks will be decided by just a couple, 3, 4 people, which is not right, and it'll come flying out of the committee, and people will, just like they did at the end of the last session, people will have an hour to look at it. Who knows what's in it? And then boom, they'll pass it through the committee and out across the floor, and then we'll all go home. And that just concerns me. It's a wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
I've heard no discussions, or very limited discussions, about, so what do people think about when we tweak the budget? Should we emphasize this, or what are our priorities?
Right. Is the governor being seen?
You know what? That's interesting. That's a good question. I haven't seen him around. No. I don't know this will shock you. He doesn't check in with me, but given who I work for. But at any rate, I haven't heard his name discussed very much during these discussions, and so that's true. I don't think he's very visible in this.
Wow, interesting. Thanks, Dave, for what you do. Thanks for being a hawk up there. Keep up the good work. We'll check in, okay?
All right, take care.
All right, God bless. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Bye-bye.